It's 6 p.m. on a Friday here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Choe. Let's start with the headlines. For the first time, China is set to join in a UNSC resolution on North Korea. Still, the regime's only ally emphasized that peacefully resolving the issue through dialogue is important for the peace and stability of the Korean peninsula. While the ruling party highlighted the urgency of passing a terrorism prevention bill in Korea, the main opposition stands firmly against the bill if it involves putting the nation's top spy agency in charge. Korea's new finance minister met with BOK chief for the first time. They discussed streamlining economic and monetary policies by acknowledging the importance of preemptively managing economic risks to overcome structural challenges. President Park Geun-hye initiated a partial reshuffle in government offices. The presidential office of Chung Hwa-dae announced the list of new appointments on Friday. Lee Seok-jun has been named to head the Prime Minister's Office of Government Policy Coordination. A spokesman for the presidential office said that Lee has been deemed fit for the post, considering his expertise and high level of understanding on state affairs. President Park also named 4 new vice ministers for other government bodies, including finance, trade, science, and internal affairs. South Korea and China held defense talks in Seoul on Friday to discuss North Korea's latest provocation. China expressed opposition to Pyongyang's nuclear test and expressed its willingness to participate in the UN Security Council resolution against North Korea. For details, we turn to Connie Kim.
China has expressed its intent to participate in a United Nations Security Council resolution against North Korea following its latest nuclear test. Beijing's first indication it would participate in the resolution came during the annual defense talks between South Korea's Director General for International Policy Yoon Sun-gu and China's Rear Admiral Guan Yufei in Seoul on Friday. The Chinese defense official had strong words for Pyongyang, calling the North's 4th nuclear test a violation of previous UN Security Council resolutions and the agreement reached by the 6-party nuclear talks in which Pyongyang agreed to destroy all its nuclear weapons. But Beijing has reiterated its stance on denuclearizing the Korean peninsula, maintaining peace and stability, and resolving issues peacefully through dialogue. This is in line with China's more lax stance compared to immediately after Pyongyang's test. There have been concerns Beijing might back down from slapping sanctions on Pyongyang, its traditional ally. The remaining issue now surrounds the severity of the UN Security Council resolution against Pyongyang. Following bilateral nuclear talks between Seoul and Beijing, China called for appropriate measures on the North. South Korea, the U.S., and Japan, meanwhile, are pushing for stronger and more comprehensive measures. It remains to be seen whether Beijing will go along with the sanctions Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo agree on, but China emphasized close cooperation during defense officials' talks, citing that South Korea and China will be most affected by North Korea's nuclear weapons program. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Shifting our focus up north, Choe Ryong Hae, North Korean party secretary and one of the most powerful men in the state, has resumed public activities after some 3 months out of the spotlight. There had been speculations over his fate since Kim Jong-un has been purging and even executing a number of his former aides. Lee Ji-won gives us the updates on Choe's return.
Choe Ryong Hae, secretary of North Korea's ruling Workers' Party, has made his first public appearance in 3 months after he was reportedly sent to a farm for punishment. According to the North State-run Korean Central News Agency, Choe gave a speech at a ceremony marking the 70th anniversary of the Kim Il-sung Socialist Youth League. The news agency called him by his official title in a clear sign Choe has been reinstated to his position and remains within Kim Jong-un's inner circle. In his speech, Choe praised the North Korean leader and mentioned how proud he was that Pyongyang had successfully tested a hydrogen bomb. Speculation surrounded Choe's whereabouts as he was nowhere to be seen in recent state activities. He was last mentioned in the North State-run Rodong-Shinmun newspaper in October of last year. And some experts think that Choe may be charged with overseeing inner Korean affairs, a position currently left vacant after Kim Yang-gun's death in a car accident last month.
Choe Ryong Hae is one of the key officials in Kim Jong-un's regime and has some experience with inter-Korean relations, like when he visited Korea in 2014 for the Incheon Asian Games.
But the expert cautiously added that Choe Ryong Hae's lack of experience in foreign relations may prevent him from being appointed to the position. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
North Korea has made progress in construction of a Lightwater nuclear reactor at the Yongbyon complex. The U.S.-based website specializing in North Korea, 38 North, said that over the past 6 months, Pyongyang has made great strides in completing 2 channels feeding water for its cooling system and the completion of the reactor's electric transformer yard. But the website also said it is difficult to predict when the reactor will become operational, as it is unclear if the regime has succeeded in fabricating the fuel assemblies that are needed to power the reactor. Once the reactor is completed, it will not only provide electricity for civilians, but also be able to produce fissile material for nuclear weapons. It has emerged that North Korea is attaching timers and small detonation devices to balloons carrying propaganda leaflets to the south to ensure the leaflets float down on their specific targets. A Defense Ministry official said Friday that the system are timed so that once the balloons reach a certain altitude, the core is severed and the leaflets detach from the balloons. The official added that more than 25,000 leaflets have been retrieved so far. It is believed the North has launched the leaflet campaign in response to South Korea's resumption of loudspeaker broadcasts at the border. The calls for a passage of an anti-terrorism bill are growing in South Korea in the aftermath of the Islamic State's deadly terror attacks in Jakarta on Thursday. However, according to our Kim Young-gil, rival parties remain at odds over details of the bill.
The ruling Saenuri Party on Friday stressed the need for swift passage of a terrorism prevention bill to better protect the public.
IS terror attacks in Jakarta follow the recent attacks in Paris and Istanbul. Asia is now more susceptible to terrorist attacks and can no longer be considered a safe zone. We must pass the anti-terror bill as soon as possible.
The ruling bloc said that opposing the bill merely to prevent the National Intelligence Service from gaining more authority is an irresponsible attitude that puts the lives and property of citizens at risk. However, the main opposition Minju Party opposed putting the nation's top spy agency at the center of counterterrorism activities, warning of possible violations of human rights and abuse of state powers.
The Saenuri Party broke its promise of establishing an anti-terrorism control tower under the Prime Minister's office instead of the National Intelligence Service. We had even agreed to restrict the role of the NIS agents to prevent them meddling in this new task force.
In recent years, the NIS has been accused of election meddling and wiretapping citizens, acts that the opposition claims exemplifies a lack of morality and disqualifies the NIS from leading anti-terrorism measures, as a spy agency often acts above law. However, experts urge lawmakers to swiftly pass the bill to counter any possible terrorist attacks in Korea.
We must pass the anti-terrorism bill as quickly as possible. It cannot be used as a political bargaining chip. The U.S. and other Western countries have this type of legislation in place, but we do not. Without this bill, it's hard for us to effectively monitor and respond to terrorist activities.
The anti-terrorism bill was first submitted to the National Assembly 15 years ago, shortly after the 9/11 attacks in the U.S., and despite people's lives being at stake, no progress has been made due to a failure to narrow differences on the bill's contents. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
A senior U.S. defense official says the deployment of a U.S.-made anti-ballistic missile system to South Korea would play a crucial security role in East Asia. The director for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation at the U.S. National Security Council, John Wolfsell, says the deployment of Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, or THAAD as it's otherwise known, would provide a strong deterrence and provide extra cover for U.S. forces in South Korea. Washington has been pushing to deploy THAAD to South Korea to deter North Korea's growing nuclear and missile threats. South Korea denies holding any official talks with the U.S. on the matter, but the issue had gained traction again after North Korea's latest nuclear test. Speaking to reporters this week, President Park Geun-hye said Seoul would consider THAAD if it suited South Korea's national interests. It was a busy day for the nation's new finance minister, Yoo Il-ho, as he met with the country's top central banker, where they agreed to cooperate on drawing up economic and monetary policies. Yoo visited one of the biggest parts in the country as well, vowing to make Korea one of the world's top exporters. Kim Min-ji has the details.
The finance minister sat down with the country's top central banker to discuss streamlining economic and monetary policies. Minister Yoo Il-ho and Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol got together in Seoul for their first meeting since Yoo took office on Wednesday. The top policymaker said it is an important time for Korea's economy, given the conditions of emerging markets, uncertainty stemming from the impact of a U.S. rate hike, and China's slowing growth. The two also discussed the importance of preemptively managing economic risks, while highlighting the need to overcome structural challenges, such as changes in the country's demographics, the weakening foundation of domestic consumption, and the shifting dynamics of the world economy. Earlier in the day, Yoo visited one of Korea's main ports in Pyeongtaek. There, he pledged to make Korea one of the world's 5 largest exporters. The finance minister said his team will search for new export markets as well as products, while strengthening industrial competitiveness. Currently, Korea is the world's 6th largest exporter after China, the U.S., Germany, Japan, and the Netherlands. The minister's emphasis on exports follows Korea's outbound shipments dropping every month last year. Yoo urged local exporters to work on innovation to foster new growth engines, adding that the government will minimize the risks by actively utilizing the Free Trade Pact with China. This weekend, the finance minister will also make his international debut. He is scheduled to attend the inauguration ceremony for the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank in Beijing. Korea is one of the 57 members of the AIIB, with the 5th largest voting rights. Yoo will also hold bilateral meetings with his Chinese counterpart and the president of the AIIB. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Korea's largest automaker, Hyundai Motor, has launched its first ever eco-friendly model. The auto giant wants to blaze a trail within the global green car industry, with other lineups expected to be released very soon. Son Jung-in tells us more.
This is the Ioniq, Hyundai Motor's first locally released hybrid and electric car. The hybrid version can run up to 22.4 kilometers a liter, on par with other leading models in the global market. Aside from its extensive list of smart features such as parking assist, the vehicle offers a program where the car's battery is covered by a lifetime guarantee. Hyundai Motor plans to introduce the electric and plug-in hybrid versions in the second half of the year. It aims to sell 30,000 units at home and abroad this year and push to increase sales to 77,000 next year, including overseas shipments of 62,000.
We are sure the Ioniq hybrid system will solidify Hyundai Motor's leadership in the global hybrid industry.
A slew of hybrid models are set to debut in Korea this year. The latest Toyota Prius, currently only sold in Japan, will be launched in March, while Chevrolet's new Bolt EV will be in local showrooms within this year. At the annual Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas last week, Volkswagen unveiled a zero-emission minivan that can travel up to 500 kilometers on a single charge.
It's much more modern, it's high technology, it's a long-range electric car, it's fully connected, it's a very emotional car, and it will be state-of-the-art by the end of this decade.
With Hyundai Motor's latest hybrid compact to debut in Europe and North America within the first quarter of the year, competition in the global market is expected to become fiercer than ever. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Moving on, the World Economic Forum says failure to take adequate action to tackle climate change is the biggest risk facing the world. Releasing its Global Risk Report 2016 on Thursday ahead of its annual meeting in Davos next week, the WEF says the failure to mitigate the adverse impact of climate change has greater damage potential than even weapons of mass destruction, which was deemed the second biggest risk. Water crises, large-scale involuntary migration, and severe energy price shocks rounded out the top 5. However, in terms of the perceived impact and likelihood this year alone, the World Economic Forum said large-scale involuntary migration is the biggest threat to our planet. The Islamic State group has claimed responsibility for Thursday's suicide attacks in Jakarta that killed 2 and injured 20. In a series of posts on Twitter, the terror group said the attack targeted foreign nationals and security forces. It also claimed to have planted several bombs with timers. 5 attackers were killed in the assaults that have been described as an attempt to copy the deadly Paris attacks. This was the first major attack in Jakarta since the year 2009, when the bombings caused 2 hotels that killed 7 people. Indonesia's President Joko Widodo has condemned Thursday's attacks, saying they were aimed at disturbing public order. And that's all from us for now. Do tune in at 10 p.m. Korea time for more. Thank you for watching.